amid a 72-hour ceasefire, although there are doubts, questions over whether it will hold. Ash Alexander Cooper is a former Joint Operational Commander with the British Armed Forces. Good morning.
Good morning.
What's your understanding then of what's going on here from today?
Well, I'm only aware of what everyone else has been reading and watching in the news. But, I as a former planner and commander of these kinds of complex operations, I know that the team will have been working up many contingency options to present to the government, through the Ministry of Defence and the Permanent Joint Headquarters, to ensure that the Prime Minister and the Cabinet have every possible option at their disposal or on the table for consideration, depending on what does unfold on the ground, because it is still very unpredictable. And while we have a 72-hour ceasefire on paper or verbally agreed between the generals, there is no guarantee in any of these kinds of situations that the fighters much lower down will have necessarily received that message. So the risk to life remains very real. And
there were options. We suspected early on in this news that it may have been an overland evacuation to Royal Navy vessels which are in the region, maybe out of Port Said. But this, it seems, is going to be an airlift. Why do you think, what are the challenges of the airlift? How will they have weighed this up, and why do you think they've gone with this option?
Well, the main challenge with this particular country and situation is the distance involved. So even if the Port Sudan option was the preferred option, it's still a 525-mile land journey on roads that are not, motorways, as it were. So the risk there is, imagine a family with small children in a large convoy. There's risk of hijacking, kidnaps, and just the distance itself of breakdowns, and that's complicated, or complex rather, to coordinate. Air is clearly the fastest way to get people out, but as you'd understand, helicopters and aircraft are limited in their capacity. So the balance of risk here and the conundrum is that you can get far more people out by road, but it's a very long journey and dangerous. You can get people out more quickly and potentially effectively if the ceasefire does hold with aircraft, but the capacity will be more limited. So it would take many more shuttles, unless there's an agreement with the Americans or others to potentially do a shorter shuttle to Djibouti, for example, to be able to increase the number of cycles of the limited number of aircraft that we have.
And presumably as well, you'd need fewer armed forces personnel on the ground if it's going to be an airlift rather than covering these huge distances. But still, there are challenges, aren't there, for contacting everybody, having rallying points, getting them to the airfield. What's the scale of the deployment here, do you think?
It's hard to say what the numbers will be, other than the reports of up to 1,200 people potentially involved across the forces, air, land, and sea. But the challenge here is time, although the real critical issue is both time and communication. We already know that communication is limited or restricted in country because of the networks going down and a lack of internet. So even if there is a good deliverable plan from the government and the forces are coming to effect an evacuation, if you do not get the message in time, and this certainly happened in the Afghanistan example, where there are still Afghans waiting for emails that didn't arrive when they should have done, and they're still stuck in country. So that's my concern, is that there may well be a good plan, and I hope there is, and I know the military will have done everything they can to make as many of these plans credible and effective. But if the communication doesn't work, that will be difficult.
And there'll be contingency plans too, because how dangerous is this operation? It's clear as to what could go wrong.
It's hugely dangerous. Even during ceasefires that were brokered last week, of which there were 3, I think Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday, in those windows, the Egyptians, Qataris, and French suffered casualties when they were trying to extract people in what was supposedly going to be a period of calm or relative calm. So, the troops going on the ground, if they do deploy onto the ground, will be ready and able to act and protect life, their own and others that they're responsible for, if it comes to it. But hopefully, as we said, the diplomatic efforts will be ongoing, and whether it's the US, UK, and other allies, that will allow the ceasefire window to broaden, and that will give us a greater chance of getting everybody who needs to get out.
Thank you very much. Ash Alexander Cooper, former Joint